Hi, I'm Ashley Hammond.
And I'm Locke Hammond.
We're married.
We run a business together.
And we homeschool our 4 kids.
That makes us sound a little crazy.
I think people might think we're a little crazy.
Well, through all that crazy, we're here to help you blaze your own trail through a world designed for conformity.
And break the chains holding you back from living an uncommon life.
This is Trailblazers and Chainbreakers. All right, we are talking about how to make our kids feel valued and respected. And this was something that I brought up. This was a question that I had from, I'll give you the backstory. In one of my men's groups, we were talking about 3 big reasons that women lose respect for their man. And this led us to how we as grown men react and act when we feel disrespected or not respected. And across the board, the answers were all different, but across the board, they all kind of linked back to some form of like an angry child or something to do with child. And we talked about this for a while, and we found that most of us did not feel valued and respected as kids. We didn't feel important and respected in that childhood. So we kind of eventually, long story short, got to the question of how do we do it differently? And that's where this question came from. And I wanted to bring it to you because you've brought a lot of great ideas into our family, which you're going to talk about some of them today. But this question of how do we make our kids feel valued and respected so that when they're grown-ups, they don't feel like us, where we felt like we were not valued and respected as kids. So we got a list of, I think it's 9. Don't hold me to that, but I think it's 9 things. Do you want to start us off with the first one?
Yeah, sure. I have soul time as the first one for me. I was listening to a podcast like a long time ago. I don't remember who was being interviewed. I know it was the Wellness Mama podcast. And this lady talked about just like giving your child undivided attention for 10 minutes a day. She said she did this with each of her kids. And I laughed because I was like, oh, well, you only have 2 kids. But then the Wellness Mama has 6. And she's like, if I can do it, anybody could do it. It really, if you do the math, 10 minutes a day is really not a lot of time, especially when we scroll on our phones way longer than that. So we really don't have any excuses. And it honestly is like 10 minutes of undivided attention. And there's not like, you can only do so much in 10 minutes. And this is what I ran into is like, you play a couple games and then the kid wants to play like a couple long games. So it goes over than 10 minutes, but it has to be just you and that kid, and no talking to your spouse or talking to the other child, because that's not undivided attention. And I found myself doing this. I was like, the other kid will come in and talk to me, and then I'd start talking in the middle of doing soul time, and that doesn't count. That's not soul time. And they really do notice. You have to give them undivided.
We had our 4-year-old called someone out the other day. She was supposedly doing soul time with me, and somebody joined us, and she got really upset, and she said, oh, but it doesn't count. It wasn't just me and daddy. She was really upset.
Well, I think it's easy when you're busy to try to combine children for soul time, but that's not the idea of this. The idea of this is undivided one-on-one attention, not like soul time with 2 kids or 3 kids. And no, that doesn't count. That's not soul time.
Yeah. And you can call it something different. I thought the name was a little bit weird when you brought it to me, but the idea is fantastic. And I want to hit on something before I toss it back to you and ask you about something else with soul time, and then we'll move on. But for me, the thing I love about this is that if you've heard me talk for any length of time, you know that I love systems, and I love to set things up so that I don't have to think about them. The idea of like one-on-one alone time, you got 4 kids, 10 minutes with, break it into an hour, call it 15 with time in between, and just block off an hour in my calendar so that I don't double book, so that I don't say, oh, but I forgot, or, oh, not today. And like, I still need to get better at this, because there are days where the kids are playing and I'm like, oh, I won't even ask. They're in the middle of something, whatever it is, but I have an alarm that goes off. And I would suggest doing it that way. If you're anything like me, if like your brain is easily focused on something and forgets like minor details off to the side, the whole point of this podcast is valued and respected. How do we make our kids feel that way? Well, if you don't do it consistently, then they're not going to feel valued and respected. To your point a second ago, if you don't do it one-on-one, if you try and cram 2-3 kids together, that may be fun. That might be good family time, but it's not one-on-one. And the point of it is they know upfront, this is, even if it's short, this is just for you. And so I would say systemize it. My phrase is idiot proof it. Put it in your calendar, set an alarm, whatever you need to do. I do have one question about this for you before we move on. I know that sometimes the kids don't even want to do it. And sometimes that's bothered you in the past, but tell us about that really quick.
I'm still struggling with that one because I don't even ask. Like, I have an alarm that I don't even ask if they're playing. I don't even ask because most of the time when I had asked, it's just like, no, we're playing a game. A lot of the times the kids don't want to do it, or I'll notice because I write it down in a notebook. Like, I'll write down each kid. I'll notice that I'll do the same two, like very consistently for a while, and then a different two very consistently for a while. But it's nothing with my choosing. It's just the two kids that happen to want it or need it. I do have to get better at asking, like when the alarm goes off, just like going, okay, who wants soul time, and kind of going around, because I have noticed when they do get that one-on-one time, it like totally changes the energy and the environment and just the way that they handle situations. And it's different.
With the younger two, they'll come to us and ask us to do something. And like, if my answer is like, I'm sorry, honey, like I'm in the middle of working, I'll let me finish this, that, and the other thing, and then I'll do it. Like sometimes if it's really important, they'll say, well, can we do soul time? And that's like, they don't know they're doing it. But to me, it's like almost every time they ask if they can do soul time, I try and make it happen. Like there are times where I have to be like, because I work from home, I got to finish what I'm doing. Like I'm in the middle of something. You just walked right in the room while I was doing it. I will do soul time with you at this time. But it's, for me, it's like a code word. They use it when it's really important to them. Like they really want to do something or they're really craving attention. So I love that you, wherever it was, you found that idea. I love that you brought that into our family. All right. My first one, number 2 on our list together is, and this is one that I really need to remind myself of and I still need to get better at, it's get interested in what your kids are interested in. For me, I'll give you 2 examples, one that I'm doing well, one that I need to get better at. Starting with our oldest daughter, but then also the other 2, they are obsessed with horses. For me, I don't love horses. Like I like animals, but horses aren't my thing. And in the beginning, I was kind of like, yeah, whatever. You like horses, cool. I don't really care. But there was a moment where I was like, this is important to them. It's clearly, if you've met our 9-year-old, it's not going away. Like she is dead set, determined on getting her own horse, paying for it herself. Like it's not going away. So I had to turn into that. And so like, even when I don't want to, we have a neighbor a couple houses down who asks our girls to take care of her horses while she's gone, a horse and a pony. I was like, even if I don't want to drive them down twice a day to take care of the horses, like I'll agree to do it because it's important to them. And we go to the library and we get books, and our 9-year-old especially will tell us all about all these different horse breeds. And like my brain is screaming at me to go do something else, like go be productive, go do something else. But I have to sit there and listen and be interested in it. And it's not like insulting to her. It's not that I don't care about her. That's actually why I'm sitting there listening. And the best example is there's this like national horse expo show kind of thing near us. And the past 2 years we've taken the kids down there, and it's not exactly my jam. I wouldn't pick that if I was trying to entertain myself, but like it actually turned out fun because we kind of committed to being present and enjoying it with them. And I think you said something about it, but kind of like soaking up their joy. That's one place that I think we're doing it well. One place I know I need to get better specifically for me is like, with our son's video games. Like I'm kind of like, okay, you want a game, cool. But I need to get better at getting interested in what he's telling me about, even if it's something I don't care about.
That's partially, and we both can get better at that. And I don't want to use this as an excuse because I think anyone that's like, well, it's my personality or it's who I am, like that's partially is your personality. And also you can improve that part of your personality that just doesn't get excited about things.
Right. And it's like, yes, it's my personality, but at the same time, I show excitement. Maybe I don't jump up and down screaming like a little girl when I get excited, but like my kids know how I show excitement. Yeah. And so I can show excitement in my way. And whether it's excitement or just interest, I can show interest. Instead of saying, "Oh, cool, you won the Super Bowl in Madden," I could be like, "Oh, wow, nice job. Who'd you play?"
Yeah.
right? And just be done there. Like
Yeah.
ask a question. So it doesn't have to be taking your kids, an hour away to this all day horse fair. It could just be asking a question as if you were interested when one of your kids tells you something they're excited about.
Yeah. I'm going to disagree with you. I think you do a really good job, maybe not with the video game excitement, but I think you do a really good job of getting into what they're into. Especially the girls. It's more the oldest one. I don't really count the situation with the younger two yet because they just more follow the role of the older one for now until they get their own thing. But you've always, like, all of her businesses, all of her whatever she dives into, you've always been kind of the driver of that. And it's a lot of the stuff that you're into as well. Maybe not the horses, but like even the horses, like you take them to the horses. And you made the connections and helped make the connections for her to do. So I disagree with that. You're not good at that. I think that you are better at that than I am.
Okay,
So
well, maybe I have a better poker face then, because inside I'm like, ugh, again.
I was
Okay.
gonna agree with you. I'm not good at that. And I actually wrote that on my list last year. On the new year, I wrote a list of stuff that I want to do. And it was one of the things was like be more involved in the garden. Cause honestly, like I could care less whether we have a garden or not. It's not my thing. And I just wanted to be more involved in it because the girls and you are always going outside and gardening and doing stuff. And it's not particularly my thing, but it excites them and makes them happy. So I'm trying to get better at that too. Cause like you, I'm not into horses. I never liked horses. I still like the stink, the smell, like grosses me out. But our daughter just like loves it. She loves the smell of it. She loves scooping the horse poop, like every aspect of it she loves. And I'm just like, yeah, go wash your hands. That's gross. But yeah.
Okay. What do you got next?
Be excited when they're excited.
Yeah, it's close, but yeah, it's important. I cut you off. Go ahead.
I said the wrong one, but it's okay.
You went out of order?
Yeah, I went out of order, but it kind of goes with what we were just saying.
It's a good mistake because we were just talking about this.
Yeah. Be excited when they're excited. I think I struggle with this one because I am a lot like you, and I even find myself having a hard time even getting excited about things that I enjoy. So I need to think about that more. And our son actually noticed it. He's like, how come, you're going to do something that you want to do. How come you're never like, when I ask you like, Mom, are you excited? You're always like, eh. And I think that's just something that I need to work on with myself. But I think I do need to show a little bit more excitement and appreciation and like gratefulness for being able to do the things that I get to do as well as the things that they get to do.
Yeah. Yeah, so we just did like get interested in what they're interested in. And now we're talking get excited about what they're excited about. I think there's a couple different angles we can go. But to say something to what you just said, what just struck me is like neither of us are like outwardly, like visibly excited very often.
Yeah.
But what I realized was in different ways, like we were trained in our childhood and growing up not to express excitement. Mm-hmm. Like for me, at one point, I was loud and rambunctious and excited, but it got me told to sit down and shut up, or it got me made fun of when I was too excited at school or something. For you, it was like, I think, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think part of it was you told yourself, don't get too excited because you can't count on whatever you're getting excited about to actually happen because you had people that wouldn't follow through in your life. And so like ask yourself this as you're listening to this. Have you trained yourself or have you been trained by other people to not show excitement? Maybe to stay safe because you might get disappointed, or to stay safe because you might stand out. Like that was it for me. I don't want to stand out, but have we been trained to not be excited? And then if we're not getting excited when our kids are excited about things, are we training them too? Maybe we're not telling them to sit down and shut up, or maybe we're not coming through when we say we're going to come through. But just by modeling and seeing us not really get excited when we go off to do our stuff, like you just said, our son was asking you that. Are we training him to not be excited for his stuff? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's something to think about.
It's interesting too. And I think you're absolutely right. I think it is like, it's probably not going to happen. So why even get excited for me? Like there was zero follow through with most of the things when I was a child. I also think that as a society as a whole, like we've been trained to not have joy and happiness and look for external things to make us happy. Like I'll be happy when. And I think a lot of the times, I know for me, like, I don't want to say nothing's ever good enough, but like, I don't always see the things that are going well.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to feel that excitement, but I don't know if this makes sense, but I had someone say to me recently at like this women's group that I was in. She said something like how she was always saying, "Oh, I have to do this and I have to do that." And her dad looked at her and said, "You mean you get to do that?
Yeah.
Like, remember, like, you don't have to do anything. Like, you get to. Like, even if it's the dishes or the laundry, like, you get to do that." Like,
Yeah.
and I was like, I don't know. It just made me think of like so many things, like even like the small, silly things that we have to do to know that we have a choice and like to find joy in those things. I think when you can find joy in the small, like almost silly things, I think it's easier for you to find joy in the things that you enjoy. And another piece of that, and this is kind of deep, is allowing yourself to actually feel that. I think a lot of us are afraid to feel happy or joy because we don't know what that is. We've never experienced that before. So our body is so used to feeling pain and not well that we don't, the other actually feeling joy and feeling good is actually the fear.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like when we relate that to kids, what I was thinking about is like my kind of instinctual reaction. Like when one of the kids is like, daddy, look at this. My kind of instinctual reaction is like metaphorical kind of eye roll with a sigh. Like, oh man, like I'm in the middle of something. Can't you guys see I'm busy? And I think you said something about finding joy, and it clicked in. Like there have been so many times. We had one this morning where you and I was watching you watch our kids as I was watching our kids too. And there was some music playing and they were just dancing around and giggling, laughing hysterically. And we were both just watching them smiling. And then I think we caught each other watching them smiling. And so you said something about finding joy. I think when we can get out of that instinct or that like gut reaction of like a sigh, and we can almost borrow from their excitement. Like they're so excited. Can we have some of that?
Yeah.
We need more of that. They're so full of joy about like this little banana picture that they drew or whatever it is. Can we borrow some of their joy for a couple minutes and let that fuel us? I think that like this is, we're coming from the angle of making our kids feel valued and respected. But on this one, like obviously if you get excited for what they're excited about, they're going to feel valued and respected. But it's almost more important than that. Like take some of, not steal some of their joy, but borrow some of their joy. There's more than enough from them, and use that for yourself instead of that whole like, and my kids, our 9-year-olds especially, like I'll be working and I'll be frustrated because of something I'm working on and I'll get interrupted 7 times. And then she'll come over for the first time and she'll say, "Hey daddy, can you help me with my math homework?" And I'll sigh. And I won't even know I do it. And she's like, "Sorry." And I'm like, no, like, don't be sorry. Like, you're fine. You're coming and asking for help. I don't even catch myself sighing. It's such an instinct. So, yeah, it doesn't have to be fake excitement,
no,
but like you can borrow it from them.
I like that. And I also do think I used to hate the phrase, and I don't use hate a lot. I used to hate the phrase "fake it until you make it," but I almost feel like if you've been so ingrained to act a certain way your whole life, I think sometimes with this situation, you do have to almost fake it until it becomes natural. And I don't want to like nail this in too hard, but this just made me think of like an Ed podcast. And what's his last name? Yeah, I always pronounce his last name wrong. He talked about how when they like go anywhere, like if they go out to eat or they go to like a baseball game or anything, his kids like roll their eyes at him, but like they actually do enjoy it. I'd be like, "Can you believe that we get to go to this baseball game?"
Yeah.
And it's like, if you can just develop that kind of like not annoying and like over the top, but like, "Can you believe we get to do this? Like, how lucky are we?"
Yeah, that kind of attitude.
That kind of attitude, I think that it could just change a lot of things.
Yeah, well said. All right, let's move on to, I think this is number 4. This is one that dawned on me a couple days ago. The importance of letting our kids change our mind. So yeah, I'm stubborn. You're stubborn. We can get pretty entrenched in our beliefs or our rules or whatever it is. And we were doing this before I think we consciously realized we were doing it, which is awesome, but we can get even better. And I would urge you guys listening to think about this. We've gotten rid of rules in our house when our kids were like, why? This doesn't make any sense. And we're like, you know what? This is kind of a stupid rule. Maybe it made sense at one point, or maybe it didn't. Maybe we were just too controlling when we were younger parents. But this doesn't make any sense. We've changed the rule. I don't enjoy when our kids argue with us at all, but we will let them present an argument or their case to us as a chance to change our mind. And I think we need to do it a lot more, because we've said this for a long time, but it relates directly to this. We want our kids to think for ourselves. We want them to question everything, right? Unfortunately for you and I, that has to start with letting them question us. Mm-hmm. And so if we want our kids to stand up for themselves, if we want our kids to be able to make a coherent argument, a coherent case for their opinion or for their proposed action, like these are skills that are going to be really useful in their life and their careers and their relationships, we need to let them do that with us. And so I've been trying to, like that, again, we were just talking about instinct, that instinctive like sigh when we get interrupted. Another instinct is, and they made a movie about this called Yes Day, right? Another instinct of parents is just to say no all the time.
Because you just get used to it.
Yeah, it's easier. It's like I get asked 27 questions an hour and I'm just going to say no to every one of them. But sometimes they'll be like, why? But I really want to, or whatever it is. And having I don't know what the right word is. I just blanked on the right word. But having the ability to take a step back, get a little perspective and be like, you know what? I don't have to always be right. It's not weakness to change my mind. I instinctively said no. It's not weakness to be like, you know what? Like I do this all the time. Daddy, can I have a mint? It's like, no, you had a mint yesterday. Like, but you know what? Fine. It doesn't really matter. You can have one. And it's like, why am I saying no? Not really for any good reason. And so letting them change our mind, whether they actually stand up to you, or just also this idea of not being so entrenched in your opinion or your rules that it's okay for you to be like, you know what, I did just say no, but I'm going to change my mind and say yes.
Yeah. I think what this also goes is being more intentional, because I think a lot of the times it's like, you can say no just to say no, right? And you don't even know why you're saying no. You're just saying no because that's what you do the most of the time. It's just become a habit for you. And so with that, you have to be super intentional to be able to question yourself and be like, wait a minute, do I even know why I'm saying no? Like, why did I just say no? Because there'll be times that I say no, and then I'll say no, and then I'll say no. And I don't even realize that I'm saying no. I'm just saying it because that's just what I've done. And then I'll say no, and then I'll be like, wait a minute, like, why is my reason for saying no? That makes no sense. Like, I have no reason for saying no. So I have to change my mind. And then with the letting them question, like, rules, that one is interesting because I'm going to say the same thing. When you have these rules and then your kid flat out asks you says this rule is dumb. This doesn't make sense because of this. And then you honestly don't even know why the rule is in place. Like, you cannot come up with one like reason why that rule is in place, and probably shouldn't have that rule.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes you'll just argue with because it's a rule and like you really don't have any reason, and the kid's like, well, this is why you shouldn't, and this is why it's dumb.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh,
well, it's like,
okay.
Have you ever had that moment where you were like, in that situation, it's like, why not? Like, here's why I should be able to do it. And you're like, well, that's the rule. And you find yourself like almost abusing logic, like using words and logic to try and convince them, but you know that they have a stronger argument. Yeah. Like, I don't know, maybe people can relate to that. I do that and I catch myself and I'm like, nope, this doesn't make sense. Why am I like, I don't want to say gaslighting, but it's like, why am I using my 30 plus years more of vocabulary and intellect and experience to basically lawyer my way into this? It's like, that's a pretty big warning sign that you should consider that. The other thing I was thinking about this is we did an episode a long time ago about like reframes. I think we called it like what to do when your kids are being annoying or something like that. It was an awesome title. But the idea was like reframing their behavior. And there's a really important reframe here that just popped in my head. And it's like, your kids aren't being argumentative. They're standing up for themselves and their beliefs. And if you can shift your mindset, I think like when I feel back to we started this whole thing on disrespect or feeling respected. When I feel disrespected, I don't think logically, right? My IQ drops. It's kind of the same idea. Like when I assume or when I label it as arguing with me, then I dig my heels in and I get really argumentative right back. And so if we can not label it as arguing, we can label it as, okay, this is really important to her, or he's standing up for what he thinks is right. Like that changes it for me. I don't know for you, but that reframe is an important one.
Yeah. I think this is all about too, like the emotional maturity of the grown up. Like, yeah, we all have like our inner stuff, but I do think that you have to be an emotionally mature adult to be able to not argue with your children and actually let them voice what they're saying. Because honestly, this is a hard pill to swallow, but if they can't voice an argument with you, how are they going to be able to do that when they're grown-ups? The people that they love and respect the most are their parents. If they can't do that in their home where they feel the safest, how are they going to do that with whoever they date or in any type of relationship that they're in?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the very original question, how to make your kids feel valued and respected. How can a child feel valued and respected if they can voice a perfectly logical argument for their case and it just gets shot down just because the parent is the authority or whatever it is? Like that is the exact opposite of feeling valued and respected.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
All right, you're up. What do you got next?
Oh, this is what was supposed to be next, but
you skipped around.
Put down your phone. And this one I also struggle with. I've gotten so much better at my relationship with my phone. But my relationship with my phone was not great for a long time.
Yeah.
So a friend of mine was saying, this was interesting. We were having this conversation and she said, since my kids were little, I've always put down my phone and made eye contact with my kids as soon as they came in the room and started talking to me. And I was like, wait, what? She's like, yeah, if my kids needed me or they wanted me, regardless of whether I thought it was silly, stupid, whatever, I put down my phone, and eye contact has always been a really big thing in our house. Like look them in the eyes so that they feel seen and heard. And I was like, oh my gosh. And if you think about like half the times when your kids are talking to you and you're just like yapping them off because you're in your phone, like you're not doing anything important. Like you don't even, like you probably don't even know what the heck you're looking at anyway. You're just mindlessly usually scrolling or you don't even know what the heck you're doing. And they always know when you're not paying attention. I'll actually tell a little bit of a story. One day, and I know we're talking a lot about our oldest daughter, but our oldest daughter and me were sitting in the living room, and I didn't have my phone on me. And she goes, "Mommy, are you here?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course I'm here, you silly goose. Like I'm sitting right next to you in this room." And she goes, "Yeah, but are you here with me?" And I was like, because she knew that my mind was just like out thinking somewhere else, and she wanted my attention. Yeah. So like if she can tell without me even having a phone on me that I was not with her, like then they can tell when you have a phone on you that you're not really paying attention to them. Like they know when they're being yapped off. Like when you're on your phone, Locke, like I know when you're not paying attention to me and you're just yapping me off. So
we've all experienced that. Like we live in a world of adults who can't put their phones down. And you, like you said, you and I have struggled with this. If we can tell, they can tell. I just want to back to that story you told. If any of you guys have a son or a daughter, if you have a child who can just call you out like that, like our 9-year-old can, don't squash that. Like that is a wake up call for you. Like maybe they're not doing it the most appropriate way. Like there are times where she just yells at us about stuff, but like we've learned so many lessons from our kids. And now the other ones, I think she's modeling it for them. It comes naturally to her, but the other ones will do the same thing. We've learned so many lessons from our kids being like, what about this? And calling us out on something. I do have one thing I want to say, because you said the story you told, putting her phone down every time the kids walk in the room. And I can already hear what some people are going to say, which is, but I have to do this, or, but this is really important. And I'll preface this by saying that this is something that I wrote that I say to myself when I have that kind of response, like I need to get this done, and you deliver it much nicer than I deliver it when you have to say it to me, because sometimes you have to say it to me. But it's like, if you can't be interrupted, then get out of the room and go do what you need to do, and stop lying to yourself, stop lying to your family that this is important. Because if it was important, you'd be like upstairs or in your office, or like, even if you have to go to, I think this is a mom joke, but even if you have to go to the bathroom and sit on the toilet with the door closed to finish what you're doing, then go do that. And then when you're with your family, be present to the story you told about our daughter. Are you here? Be there. If you think that it has to get done, get off your butt, get out of the room, and go do it, where they don't have to wonder whether the phone is more important than them.
Yeah. Another thing I want to add to this, which is just going on a tangent kind of, and a lot of adults get mad at children because of their phone use and their technology use. But it's like, have you chickadee checked yourself lately?
Chickadee check.
Like, you don't want your kids on their phone all the time. You don't want them obsessed with the screen, but yet you're obsessed with the screen. Yeah,
it's ironic that so many kids have to compete with their parents' cell phone for attention. And then those same parents, when those kids become teenagers and get their own phone, are complaining about how they have to compete with their teenager's phone for their teenager's attention.
Well, we were at a restaurant once, and they were yelling at their kid to get off the iPad, and the dad literally scrolled on his phone until he got his food. And I was like, that is a little bit backwards, my friend.
Yeah. Yep. We have experienced the struggle to get our mind. It's addictive.
It's right? Super addictive.
We don't have to go down this road just to keep things short-ish, but like, there's plenty of science out there. You guys can find it. There's documentaries, right? Social media, but just phones in general, the cheap, easy dopamine, it's addictive. So like, I've struggled with that. You've struggled with that. The question is, are your kids important enough to do something differently, I guess?
And I think the moral of this for my friend, what she said, and you see it a lot on the internet, especially now, if you don't put down your phone, or you don't pay attention and make eye contact and act like you care for the small things when they're little, then they're not going to come to you with the big things when they're bigger. You want them to tell you things when they're a teenager. They're only going to tell you things that if they feel seen and heard when they're little, with the small things like the excitement about a dinosaur or a video game or a pony or whatever it is for your kid. Like, if you don't pay attention and get excited about those things and give them like undivided attention, then they're not going to come to you when they're experiencing big feelings and emotions.
Absolutely. The next thing on my list goes right off of this one. You I think used this phrase 2 or 3 times, but it's make eye contact. Like, as adults, if we're at work or in a store or something like that, and someone doesn't make eye contact when we're talking to them, it's weird. It might be creepy. It might just be slightly offsetting, but it doesn't make you feel respected and heard, right? So why would it for our kids? So make eye contact when they're talking to you. It seems so silly and simple, but it's actually really powerful. And one of my friends always talks about, when you have little kids, get down on their level. When they're upset, when they're talking to you, whatever it is, when they're telling you something important, especially, get down on their level and make eye contact with them down on their level. I'm 6'4", so when like a 2-foot tall toddler is upset and trying to get my attention, there's a big difference between me being 4 feet taller than her and me getting down on the ground on my knees, holding her in my arms or not, and just making eye contact and saying, "Oh my gosh, what's going on? What happened?" So that's a nice short one, but make eye contact. What do you got? You got one more?
Yeah, one-on-one time. I think this one, so we do one-on-one dates with each of our kids, and it's not anything fancy. There's a lot of them, and it does take up the majority of the weekends on every month. So it's nothing like fancy, but one-on-one time, taking them just alone and having quality time with them out of the house has been huge. And I've actually, one of my favorite times with our oldest child is like going in the car and driving. I have some of the best conversations with him when it's just me and him in the car. And I actually look forward to that time because like I know that we're going to have really, really good conversations, and he says stuff to me that he probably wouldn't say normally. And grown-ups are like this too. Like one of my friends said that like she has the best conversations with her husband when they're walking. And I actually heard something where like kids actually talk better in a car when they're not facing you, when they're side by side you. It's like the same thing with walking because you're not like facing each other, which we just talked about eye contact is important, and I agree with that, but sometimes kids have a hard time like opening up about big things when
Yeah.
they're like put on the spot, almost like they feel like you're like, well, why does this make you feel that
Shine
way?
a spotlight in your
It
face.
feels more like a organic conversation when they're not like sitting there staring at you.
Yeah. I think there are two really key points in this idea of one-on-one. We call them dates, mommy date, daddy date. The first, like you said, is just obviously it's one-on-one, right? Like it's alone time, but it's not like we opened up with soul time, one-on-one around the house, playing games, doing whatever, coloring, whatever it is. This is like going out, doing something a little bit different. It does not need to be expensive or elaborate. A lot of times it's taking them to a coffee shop to get a hot chocolate and go for a hike. Right?
Yeah.
So it's not like you're going and you're spending $300 shopping for that. Like that actually is the opposite of the point. It's more quality time than let me just go spend money. So don't let money hold you back. The second point, which I want to really stress, is to a certain extent, I just said it doesn't have to be big and extravagant, to a certain extent, but it's their choice. Obviously, if they say, well, I want you to go buy me, 7 new outfits, it's like, well, no, but it's their choice what to do. So it's not like, hey, I thought we would go to the coffee shop for a hot chocolate and get a hike. When we do that, it's their choice. Yeah. There's some limitations on that choice, but I want to play mini golf today. It's like, okay, let's make sure they're open. Make sure it's not snowy, but like, if you want to play mini golf, we can go play mini golf. And I think that's important. We're talking about feeling valued and respected. The one-on-one time is awesome, but it takes it to a whole nother level when it's their choice, again, within reason, their choice of what to do.
Yeah, for sure. And if they can't come up with things, we usually end up doing the same thing. You could also go on Pinterest, and it has like one-on-one dates with kids that will give you really cool ideas, which, by the way, I wanted to print.
I'll give you a tip, trick, hack, whatever you want to call it. You just said something about riding in the car and eye contact sometimes being intimidating, which was a good point. The other piece here that I found is when you so it's like Saturday, we do these on Saturday mornings. Saturday morning, and it's, one of the girls date with me or whatever it is. What do you want to do? On the spot, that's a tough decision to make. There's so many choices. So if you come up with a bunch of ideas ahead of time, whether it's from Pinterest or you just brainstorm a bunch of ideas, you can give them options, or you can have them help you make the list depending on the age. That's always, valued and respected. They have input on the list. Having some ideas stored up so that they can choose from them, or even like if there's 8 things on the piece of paper and it might just prompt them to think and come up with a 9th idea that you would then end up doing. But don't be surprised if you're like, okay, what do you want to do today? I don't know.
Yeah, I get that a lot.
Yeah. All right, cool. I have another quick one. I think just letting them have a say in family decisions. And it could be simple, like picking what's for dinner. Or it could be bigger things like, I know I've heard of some families doing like a family vote. I can't remember who it was, but I heard of one family having 2 or 3 options for a family vacation, like on the destination. Mm-hmm. And then the kids and all the parents each got a vote on which one it was. Obviously the parents picked the options in the first place, so they controlled that a little bit, but that probably made the kids feel pretty valued to have an equal say in where they were going to go on vacation. So letting them have some sort of say in family decisions. All of our kids, the younger 2 don't always do it every week, but actually the 4-year-old has started doing it more. So is the 6-year-old, picking dinners. Like that's a good one. Like we have some complainers about some dinners. It's frustrating to you and me. Okay, so pick a dinner. What would you like to eat? And this night can be your night to pick, again, within reason. But what do you want to eat? Instead of complaining about this, why don't you come up with a dinner that you would like?
Yeah.
All right. So that's 8 things. You actually, we didn't even plan this. You actually kind of from memory half quoted this quote that I wanted to end on. My 9th thing on the list is to listen to the little stuff. And I'm going to use a quote to explain it. And it might sound slightly familiar because Ashley just rudely recited half of it. But it's from a woman named Catherine Wallace. And it says, listen earnestly to anything your children want to tell you, no matter what. If you don't listen eagerly to the little stuff when they're little, they won't tell you the big stuff when they're big, because to them, all of it has always been big. And if you've ever seen, like, I'm trying to think of some examples, a 4-year-old get so incredibly excited about the stick figure horse that she just drew. If you can't tell, that happened this morning in my house. Like, it's a big deal to her.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal to you, but everything is a big deal to them. It feels big. That's why they're excited. We talked about excitement. We talked about getting interested in what they're interested in. It's a big deal to them. That's why they're excited and interested in it. And so, to your point, and you said this very well earlier, if you don't respect that those things are big to them now, when they feel little to you, the things that you in your adult perspective think are actually big, when they grow up, they're not going to come and tell you.
Yeah.
And that's going to be sad.
For sure.
All right. That's 9 things, nine ways you can make your kids feel valued and respected. That's all I got. You got any off the top of your head? You want to make it an even 10?
No.
No, we're sticking with 9. All right.
Yeah.
9 things, not 10 things. Ashley disappointed us here. And that's all we got for you guys. Thank you for coming along on this journey with us.
Thanks, friends.
Hi, friends. If you're enjoying the show, would you please leave a quick rating or review on Apple Podcasts for us? Doing this helps more people find the podcast, which means even more people can benefit from the conversations. We really appreciate you and your time, and thanks, as always, for listening.